of inheritance, right? Why we use inheritance, and we have seen what is the need of inheritance through one example, that is bank example, loan example, right? So suppose this is with inheritance, you require some whatever the same amount of code you can write in single class that will become the parent class for other classes, and you can write the classes with its own methods, its own data only. You don't need to create or write the same data again and again in the child classes. This is the syntax of using inheritance. That is the name of the child class. We use extends keyword and then the superclass name or parent class name. Okay. And you can write down whatever the data you want to fixed for this child class itself. As it is an inheritance concept, by default, all these details from the parent class will inherited here into the child class. That means this data is automatically available for the child classes. We are going to see directly through the example once again. Okay. So now we will see the next topic, that is types of inheritance. So basically there are 5 types of inheritance in total. Okay. So first is single level inheritance. Second one is multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, multiple inheritance, and hybrid inheritance. From these 5 inheritances, there are few inheritance which are not supported by Java. Which are those and why those are not supported, that we also see here in this chapter. First one is the single level inheritance. Single level inheritance is a fundamental concept where subclass inherits from only one superclass. What does that mean? So this means that the subclass can acquire the properties and methods of the superclass, enabling code reuse and extension of existing functionality, which we have created yesterday. The same example, the class personal loan extends loan. This is the example of single level inheritance, where this personal loan, we are extending it from one superclass or one parent class. So we are extending the properties of this loan class into this personal loan. Okay. And there is code reusability functionality also. The example is class A, which is a parent class, and class B is a child class. We are extending the class A properties into the class B. We are extending the class A into class B. This is single level inheritance. There is always one parent and one child relationship between the single level inheritance. Okay? Here, class A is a parent class and class B would be the child class of class A. So we are going to see one example of single level inheritance. For that, I'm creating one class inside the package 10, module 10, new class, create a class named single level inheritance. Include the main method. So first of all, in the single level inheritance, we are going to create the 2 classes. First one is the class vehicle, which we have seen when we learn the inheritance example. Class name is vehicle. In this vehicle class, I am going to add few members, that is the string color, string name, then I will write down string type. What type of vehicle is that? We will generate source, generate getter and setter methods if you want. Okay, so first I am generating the constructor using fields. Okay, then the constructor using superclass, that is default constructor. Here I am going to assign different classes, values. So we are going to use here this keyword to set the values. Suppose the values are red, For name, I am giving as and the third one is type. That is, suppose I am saying that the type is two-wheeler, okay, or any other type you can write. I am writing car, okay. So I am using this keyword to call the parameterized constructor by setting all these details, okay. This is basic part. I am not going to create getter and setter methods here because this members are we have declared as with the default accessibility. That means package level accessibility. So we don't require that. But I am writing one method here, that is void display, which is the instance method of vehicle class, and this display method is used to display. I'm simply writing it display method called. Okay. Now we will create one child class of this vehicle class. That class name is car, class car, which is extending vehicle class. Okay. So that means all the properties of this vehicle will automatically come here into the child class, into car. Okay. You can define its own type also, like string type, variable. You can define those which are similar, which will be different for this actually. And the string model I am defining. Okay. Now in this example, we are going to learn the use of super keyword as well. Okay. What is the use of super keyword? So here we will generate the default constructor first. Okay. And parameterized constructor. You can see that these constructors are automatically created as per the parent classes. ठीक है, जैसे parent classes में है वैसे ही आपके सारे constructors यहाँ पे भी generate हो गए हैं. Now you can see that there is a super keyword by default come here into the constructor call. So this super keyword is always used to, what is the purpose of super keyword, that we will first see, and then we will see the next part. Okay, so the thing is that super keyword is always the first statement of your constructor call. Okay, so when you generate the constructor, or you can basically do anything, you can write the constructor, the first statements should be the super keyword. What is the super keyword? What is the use of super keyword? So basically super keyword is provided to call, or it is just a reference variable which is used to refer immediate parent class object. We are referring parent class object here. Okay, we are referring parent class object here using super keyword. Whenever you create the instance of subclass, an instance of parent class is created implicitly, which is referred by super reference. It is a super, right? And we say that parent class as a super class. So it is a reference for super class. What are the different usage of super keyword? Super can be used to invoke immediate parent class constructor, which it is automatically generated in our car class. Syntax is this, you can pass the parameters also. Super can be used to invoke immediate parent class methods also. Okay, the syntax is super dot method name and parameters if any. Then super can be used to refer immediate parent class instance variables also using super dot variable name. Okay, so these are the different things which you need to understand before and going forward with this example. So here you can see the super constructor is called with this parameter, there is no parameters. That means from the default constructor of car class, we are calling the superclass constructor. That is nothing but your vehicle class constructor. If you select here and open the declaration, you can see that it is calling the parent class constructor, that is vehicle. Okay, it is automatically called, and this should be the first statement of your constructor. Now, if I want to add few more details about my model, okay, this type you are defining again, okay, this type is here already. String type in the vehicle class we have defined already, and we are defining string type again into the child class in a car class. Okay, these two are different entities, but basically the whenever you are defining this, it is over hiding the concept. Basically, it is over hiding the type variable from the parent class. Overhide. I am using the statement overhide. Okay, it is over hiding the type variable details from the super class. So I'm not assigning anything for this type, but if I want to assign some value to this model, then we can use simply this dot model. So this dot model is equals to, suppose I am using sedan. Okay. So this dot model, I am setting the model, car model. Okay. You can write anything else if you want. So this dot model, I am setting only the value for this model instance variable of car class. Now, again, as per our parent class constructors, there is a child class parameterized constructors also generated. Okay. So here you can see we are using super keyword and passing all these parameters to the superclass constructor. That means again, vehicle parameterized constructor. Okay. Vehicles classes parameterized constructor. So whenever you are generating or whenever you are writing, that means you need to use always, not always, but whenever required. Most of the time in inheritance we use this super constructors always. ठीक है, most of the time. But अगर आपको skip करना है तो आप skip भी कर सकते हो, not necessary. But generally, जैसे मैंने बोला कि these all details from the parent class are by default available to this car class. That means you need to set the values to all these members. Right? You need to set the values to all these members. That is why we always use the super constructor call, super keyword to call a constructor. Now, these details are there into car classes parameterized constructor. But car class also has its own member, that is model, that you can add here. String model. Okay. And that is not a part of parent class, right? So we are not passing that member into the super constructor call. We will use, or we will set that similar to this. We will set that here using this dot model is equals to model. Okay. So we are setting basically the child classes its own members as well as parent classes constructor calls using super keyword. Now, again, I will write down the same method here. Okay. Now I will add here display method of vehicle class. Okay. And display method of car class. Okay. So this is display method. Same method I am writing here. Okay. Same method I am writing here. Nothing changed. The return type is same. Name of the method is same. Parameters are same. Everything is same. You can write in this way. In this display method, we can call whatever the members here or this method has, whatever the data we have written into this display method, that also I want to call, and I want to call the child classes method also. Then here we can use super keyword to call the superclasses display method. Okay, to call superclasses display method. So this superclass we have used to call super constructors, super parameterized constructor, that means superclasses parameterized constructor. You can call superclasses method call, right? So using super keyword, you can perform all these things. Also, we can access the members of instance variables of parent class also using super keyword. So that I will write down here. Okay. System.out.println. In this void display method, I want to write down all the details of my vehicle and car. So I am writing name is equals to name. We have not defined any name here in the child class, but we have defined the name attribute here into the vehicle class, that is a parent class, right? So we have to access it from parent. So here we will use super dot name. Similar to this, after name, I will write down color. Again, it is defined into the parent class. That's why again we have to use super keyword. Third is type. Now, type here we have defined two type variables. One is into the child class and one is into the parent class. We are setting the value to the parent one. We are not setting any value to the child one. So here also I am using super dot type. Okay. After using this type, now if I want to access the members of child classes itself, like the member is model, right? So model, when we want to access the model, you can use direct this dot model. Why? Because this is a parent classes member or child classes member. Model is child class member, right? So it is available immediately. But whatever the parent class members are, you need to access those using super keyword. That is also dependent on what accessibility you are specifying. If these have the accessibility, that's a private members. If these are private members, you cannot access it. Okay. We will see that in the next example, or I will show you that here directly. So if it is a private, then you will get error directly here. Why? Because you know that private members are accessible only within the same class. Okay, if you want to give access, now I will explain one thing here again. If you want to give access to any member only to a child class of it, अगर आपको किसी इसी क्लास के मेंबर्स को कौन से भी एक मेंबर को एक्सेस देना है, बट वो भी सिर्फ आपके चाइल्ड क्लास को ही रहना चाहिए, तब आप उस मेंबर को प्रोटेक्टेड डिफाइन कर सकते हो. यू कैन डिफाइन दैट member as protected, because protected accessibility for the protected is, it is a package level. That means this is available package level, all classes from the same package, and which is subclasses and non-subclasses also, but it is accessible to the subclasses from different package. ठीक है, so आप उसको protected बना सकते हैं. You can change the visibility. You can make it as a protected also. ठीक है, so here we have declared, or we have seen two different things. First is the super keyword and the single level inheritance. That means one child class from one parent class. ठीक है, one parent, one child. Now, how to instantiate it? How to execute this all? Okay, here I will write down one type also. Okay, this is the super type we have defined. I will write down type is equals to this dot type also. We have not defined any value to it, but that will be, we will see what will be the output for this. Okay, so type, I am specifying two values. Type, this is a super type, and this is child classes type variable. Okay, now here we will access, or we will see how to create the objects of these two parent and child classes. Okay. So first thing here in this example, that is, we can create the object of parent class and access the parent members directly. Okay. So first thing is create object of parent class and access parent members directly. Okay, we can do this part. So parent class is vehicle class. Vehicle V is equals to new vehicle. I am using default constructor. Okay, you can set the values also, or I am you directly calling a method display. V dot display. Okay, this is accessible. You can set the values to any other member also. Suppose I am setting the changing the type car itself. Okay, I'm changing the value, or we will use color instead of this. I will set color. Okay, so I'm setting value for the color attribute. We can call the method display method, which is parent class method, right? So we can access all the members of parent class directly by using parent object. But second thing, all members of parent classes are by default available for child class. Okay, by default available for child class, and we can access all members of parent into child using child object. So now here we will create child object. Here I am using parameterized constructor. Okay, I will set the values directly. Name, then type, it is again car, and model I am using, suppose SU. Okay, so I have created the car object using parameterized constructor by passing all the values. Now we can access the members of the parent using this car object directly. This is the second point. Remember this. Okay, this is the second point. C dot, you can change the color. C dot color is available into vehicle class. That is a parent class. So you can change the color. Suppose I am changing the color to blue. Okay, you can call the members of child class directly, right? This is by default available. By default available from parent to child. From parent to child. You can call the members of parent and child also. Okay, you can call the members of parent and child also. Now here we will call the display method, C dot display method. Now whenever you are using C dot display method, it will call child class, child class is display method. Okay, call child class method. Okay, so this is the second point, which is nothing but you can create the object of, we can create object of child class And here parents of members of parent class are by default available. By default available to child class. Okay. So this is the second point. We will execute this first, then I will explain the next part. So you can see display method of vehicle class called. This is from vehicle object. ठीक है, जो हमने vehicle object create किया था उसके थ्रू आपका vehicle का display method हमने call किया था. This display method is called from your child class. ठीक है, child class. Why? Because we have used super keyword to call the parent class method display. So when you are calling this display method, it is basically first call will go to the parent class display method, and then the remaining lines of the child class child classes method will be executed. So you can see here we have given whatever the parameters you have passed, same parameters are there. We have changed the value to the color, this type. So this type is null because we have not set any type value. That means child classes member value, child classes type value. Okay, we have set the value this type for super classes type variable. ठीक है, जब तक आप इसको वैल्यू नहीं देते हो तो ये वैल्यू नहीं मिलेगी. ओके, you can define the same name variables, you can define the same name members in the child class also. This is the second part. So understood till here? Anyone has any doubt? Okay. Now the next point here is we cannot access, or instead of we, parent can't access child members directly. Okay, parent can't access child members directly. That means this is a parent reference, right? And there is model is a member of child. So suppose you try to v dot model is not visible to the parent object or parent class. Why? Because parent class's data, parent class is a different class, right? Whenever you are creating the object of parent class, that means the memory will be allocated according to the members of this vehicle class itself, according to your parent class itself. That means it has only 3 string variables, string members, and 1 display method. So जब भी आप object create करते हो parent का, the memory is allocated according to the parent members itself. It is not going to create the memory, or it will not allocate the memory for these child members. And these are not available to parent. ठीक है, that is why आपको parent members आप directly access कर सकते हो. You can access the parent members directly using the parent class object or using the child class object, but parent can't access child members directly. This is not possible. ठीक है. Then next point, fourth point, which is you can create the parent child class object and store it into parent reference. Okay, so creating parent object which will hold child reference. ठीक है, how it is? So here we can use vehicle, that is parent class object, suppose v1, and while initializing you need to use car classes, that is child reference. Okay, child classes reference. So we use here new car. Okay, so this is nothing but you are creating the object, or you are creating memory will be allocated according to the car class, but we are saving here into, we are referring it through parent object. Okay, so basically when you are using this concept, your members for the child classes, the memory is not allocated for, or those are not visible to this, because parent can't access the child members. Okay, parent reference hai, parent object hai, that is why the members which are common for car class, those are accessible here. We will directly see that here we have called the car classes default constructor. So we can directly call the display method. We have a display method defined in both classes, in the parent and child, both classes. We will see that which is accessible and which is not. Here, I will try to access v.color. Okay, v.color. I'm changing the color to blue. And not v, sorry, v1 object is there. And v1 object through, I'm trying to call, set the value to the model, but which is not available. Why it is not available? Because we are creating the parent object, right? And we have just seen that parent can access the child members. Though you are using the child reference here, the memory is allocated according to the object class, right? That is a parent class. And that is why we don't have the model member here accessible here through this parent object. So if I execute this, so you can see both methods are called, parent one also and child one also, because we are calling, the methods are same name. The overriding concept is here. We will see that in the next sessions. Okay, the overriding concept, I will explain that in detail later. But here, as both have the same name methods, that's why the child classes display method is called, and in that display method, we are calling the parent class method also. That's why we have got the same output from the parent one and child one. Okay, this is the fourth point related to inheritance. We cannot access child data members directly here when you are using this particular parent object to store the child member or child reference. Okay, so remember that. Next point is fifth point. Fifth point, vice versa is not possible. Okay, that means child class cannot directly hold parent reference. So suppose you try to create car C1 and you are trying to create the parent reference here. This is not possible. So child can't access, or child cannot store the parent reference, or child object never used for parent reference. Always, if you are using child, then you have to use its child class or its own class constructor itself. Okay, that means the statement is child can't directly hold parent reference. Okay, directly hold parent reference. And this is not possible. That's why I'm commenting this. And the last point is child class cannot access another child class members directly. So suppose I have one more class. I'm simply writing that class here. Okay, that class is, suppose, truck, which is extending vehicle class itself. and it has one member. Suppose that member is integer speed limit. Okay, this member, this is another child class of vehicle class. Okay, but again, one child, one parent, that means this is also one example of single level inheritance. Okay, so child cannot access, can't access another child class members. That means if I am creating the object of car class, we have already created that, right? We have that car C. So suppose you are trying to access C dot, the member is speed limit from the truck class, that is not accessible because it is not visible. It is not visible to another class, right? So we cannot access another child classes members directly. You never access, you cannot access child classes members directly. Clear? These things are important. You should remember all these points related to the inheritance. These are 6 points I have explained. Okay. This concepts, that means creating parent object and holding the child reference. These concepts we are going to learn in detail later. But अभी के लिए सिर्फ ये 6 points आपको ध्यान में रखने हैं कि किसमें क्या पॉसिबल होता है, किसमें क्या पॉसिबल नहीं होता है. ठीक है, रिमेंबर दैट. And this is the example of single level inheritance where we have seen the use of super keyword. Also, this super keyword is we are using for calling the constructors. Super keyword we are using to call the parent class method, and super keyword we are using to access the parent class members directly. Understood? Go through this example once. Let me know if you have any doubt. Any doubt, anyone? Shall we go ahead? Okay. I think there is no doubt. So we will go ahead with the next point. So we have seen that single level inheritance with example. Next one is the multi-level inheritance. Multi-level means there are one parent, then there is another class, which is child class of that class, and it is inheriting the properties of parent class. That child class becomes again a parent class for another class, forming a chain of inheritance that is known as multi-level inheritance. This mechanism enables a class to inherit methods and fields from multiple ancestors, but in a direct line where each class in a chain inherits from one class directly above it. Okay, so basically we are creating a chain of classes. So here in this example, you can see that this is a flowchart. In this flowchart, class A is a parent class. Class B is a child class of parent class A. Class B becomes the parent class for class C. So this class C is a child class, okay, for class B. So class C is a child class of class B. Class B is a child class of class A. Okay, this is a multi-level inheritance. Okay, understood? So we can see one example of this directly. So in this class, we will first create one class. Name of the class I am giving as multi-level inheritance example. Include the main method. Here I am creating first class. We have already created person class, right? We have already created one person class. I think, okay, problem. We will find it out. Class employee. I am creating class employee, which is extends person class. Let me check the person class is created within this or not. Okay, we don't have a person class in this module. No problem. We will create one class person in this package itself. Okay. So this class person will have different members. You can write down the members like string, name, string, address, string, contact number, right? Then in employee, we will write down the members which are employee related only. For example, it's salary. So double salary. Then it's joining date. For example, the joining date will be in the, I am considering it in the string format. Okay. Joining date. These are different things. Okay. Which are related to employee class only. Now I will create one more class. That class is class developer. Okay, which extends employee class. Okay, class developer, which is extending employee class. Now you can see that person is a parent, employee is a child class of parent, that is person class. Employee class becomes parent for developer class. Okay, so here in the developer, I will write down its own member. Suppose that member is number of hours or working hours. Okay, so double working hours. Working hours cannot double. We will write down into working hours. Okay, so this is a developer classes, its own member. But as we are creating the chain of this, we can access the person class members also into the developer class. So first we will generate the constructors here into the parent class, into the employee class, generate the members here also. Okay. So employee classes, we will add its own member also, that is salary and joining date. These two members also into the parameterized constructor. Double salary and string. we can set these members default, this dot, this dot, the member is salary and joining date. So I'm setting the value for the joining date. Right? So this is a default constructor, parameterized constructor for employee. Now we will generate the constructors into the developer class. You can see all the members here also. So constructor using fields. Now here we are setting the direct constructor values to into working hours, but we are not getting the employee constructor here. Okay. But we can add those things by adding all these parameters. When you are generating, it will not be available, but you can set these details in this way. All these details you need to set to superclass parameterized constructors, like you need to send name to the parent class, address to the parent class, contact number to the parent class, then salary and joining date also to the parent class itself, because all these are from parent employee class members, right? So we are sending all these details to super constructor. So these details will be set to this employee constructor. Again, from these three members are sent to person classes constructor. Okay, because this is a parent. Now this I have generated default construct. I will generate the default constructor here. Public developer. In the default constructor, you need to call the default constructor of parent class, that is using super keyword. Now after that, we will generate the toString methods to get the values of all these objects. So we can add the toString method. We can generate the toString method into parent person class by adding all these fields. Okay. Now you know that why we create the toString method and what is the purpose of it, right? So we will generate the toString method here again, and we need to add the inherited fields also, or you can use inherited method, that is a toString method, so that it will create object. It will call the superclasses toString method for all these details. Let me create one more time. Generate toString. These are fields of employee classes. Now I want to call the toString method from parent also, because I want all those details also here into the employee class. So you can use this so that this toString method is going to display the superclasses toString method. That is nothing but all the details from person class. Okay, this is the employee class toString method. Now I will generate the toString method into developer class, that is level. Source, generate toString method. Here also I will include the toString method from parent one, that is inherited methods. Okay, if you want to add inherited fields, you can add the inherited fields also, but I want inherited method. Okay, in this example I will show you the use of inherited fields. Okay, so all the fields from the parent are available here. You can access those directly. Okay, so this is the example of multi-level. So we are creating the level. Person is a parent, employee is a child, developer is a child of employee class. We are creating the different levels. You can add more levels also if you want. Okay, now we will create the object of employee class. E is equals to new employee. I'm calling the default constructor. We will set the different values. Now all these members are with the default accessibility itself. If you are making those through using private, you can create or generate the getter and setter methods. But I am using this directly. E.name is equals to, I'm setting some name. Then E dot address, I'm setting some address. E dot contact number, suppose I don't want to set the contact number, I will directly set the salary. Okay, it is a double, so I will set it into double format. Okay, something like this. So salary details, name, address, contact number. If you want to add, you can add it. I will add the joining date. Okay, suppose this is a joining date. So this object is created and we are initializing it using the same class name, right? We are initializing it using the same class name. So this concept is known as static binding or static reference or early binding or early reference. Why? Because we are creating the child class object and we are initializing it through the same child class object, right? So there is no parent and child relationship like this. Here we have created the parent object and which is used to hold the child reference. This is not the case. So we are creating a simple child class object and initializing it through the same classes constructor. So this is static binding, static reference, early binding or early reference. Why? Because at the compilation time itself, compiler will understand that it will have to generate or allocate a memory based on this constructor called whose object we are creating and the members we are assigning the values. Okay? That is why it is static binding. It is known as static binding. Clear? Understood this static binding concept? You can call now. We are already generated the toString method. So you can directly display system.out.println this employee object. You will get all the details directly, right? So you can see that the toString from the person class is also called using the super. We have not set the contact number. That's why the default value for that contact number field is none. So it will assign whatever the default value according to the data type you are setting. Okay? This is static reference, static binding. Okay. Clear? Here I will explain this again. 1 minute. Okay, so binding a reference and type of object referred together is known as binding. Okay, static binding is when the type of object is determined at compile time by the compiler. It is known as static binding. We are going to see this dynamic binding concept, which is determined at runtime. It is known as dynamic binding. Okay, so that part we will see later. Till here, anyone has any doubt? So this is basic, clear. हमने किया है employee class, right? Now we can create the object of developer class as well, because this is also a child class. New, I am using the parameterized constructor here. Suppose I am setting the values, address, contact number. Then suppose salary I am setting, it is into this, and I don't want to give this joining date. So if you don't want to give the joining date, then you can give the value for null, because it is a constructor call and you have to compulsory give some value here. Okay, if you don't want to give, just give the null value as an input, because constructor has fixed number of parameters, and if you don't want to give any value, you have to give that value as a null. Okay, so all these values are set successfully, and you can display it through system.out.println as we have created the toString method. So you can see the toString methods details are like this. We have used the inherited fields also here. You can access these as I have written all these in a single file, basically in same Java file. All these classes are in same Java file so that we can access this directly. But if those are in different Java files, you can use the super keyword. You can use the super keyword to access the parent members, which we have used here in this example, right? We have used the super keyword to access the prime members. Okay, same thing you can do here also. So this is an example of multi-level inheritance. Clear? Any doubt? You can go through this example if you want. One more time. We will see what is the dynamic reference, dynamic binding in the next session, and the remaining types of inheritances in the next session. Thank you, everyone. If you want to leave, you may leave.